evening everyone. Thanks so much for stopping by. I wanted to share my work in progress on the Roxysjournalofstitchery down the garden path, the prompt number 3, which is a vegetable patch. So as I mentioned in the last video, I've taken a Chateau de Villandry in France as my inspiration because they have amazing grounds with these really elaborate vegetable patches. And so I've used a base image that I printed onto paper, transferred onto fabric, and you can see me talk about that in the part 1 of this video, as well as I've made a separate video of the method for transferring from inkjet to fabric using fabric Mod Podge. And I'm continuing to work on the technique, and I think there'll probably be another video that has an overnight method that involves rinsing off the excess paper. So stand by for that. I just want to do a little bit more experimenting before I share that one with the world. So in my veggie patch, last time we were working on it, we were adding French knots, which I continued to do using variegated thread. So variegated thread that has multiple different colors through it. So this has a more intense green, a sort of a lighter green, and then almost a pale greeny whitey color. So I've used that to evoke cauliflowers, broccoli, and Romanesco, which is an Italian broccoli in that sort of fractal style, pointy fashion. They're just the most amazing things to look at. So I'll just make sure hopefully that's in focus. And hopefully we don't lose focus now that we've gone down. And so I finished off all the French knots at sort of distributed around the patch. And then I came and just did loose stitches, sort of loopy stitches with all strands of the embroidery floss, and left them loopy so that they kind of form leaves around the broccoli. And then periodically, especially when I've been working on it and sort of flattening it out, it's good just to use the blunt end of a needle just to sort of lift them a bit. But it's got a really lovely texture. It's really standing up from the border of the flower bed, which I love. And then I've done some work on a patch with red cabbage and green cabbage, and I'll talk about that when we come to do some of those together. And I've done 2 pumpkin patches and a strawberry patch using a ribbon base and then beading on top. But again, we'll do that together and I'll talk about that then. So I wanted to kick off with the pumpkin patch. So when I was at Chateau de Villandry, they had these big piles of pumpkins out on display, really looking beautiful in the gardens. And so I wanted to have some pumpkins featuring in mine. Now I didn't have any beads that were exactly the right colour. I did remember though that I had a necklace from, I think I would have got it from an op shop sitting there, and so I stripped it off because it had some more sort of orangey pinky coloured beads. It had a couple of orangey ones but not enough to use for this purpose. I had some pinky orangey ones, both in a round shape but also in a more irregular shape as well. I think, yeah, you can see one there, but also a great assortment of other ones. So that's going to stay in my little stash to use. Just checking that I'm still on camera. So what we're going to do is wrap a bead, because that's what I've done for these pumpkins. So they're all beads wrapped in a single strand of embroidery floss, and then I've just run a little thread through them like a vine. So keeping it very, very simple, but just adding those little features. Well, probably not really keeping it simple, it's actually getting quite intricate, but that's fun. And then what I did for the base of those garden beds was I got this lace. Sorry, my threads are everywhere. They're leaking out of my little thread box over there. I got this lace, which I'd got from, I'm pretty sure from the Sewing, and I'm certain I got that from the Sewing Lair online op shop here in Australia. And green, and it was actually the perfect size for this particular garden bed. And then I've also used the middle of it turned over along this garden bed, so I just cut out the pieces. I've still got the outsides lurking here because who knows, I'll probably end up using them somewhere else. What I do often with my laces is I'll roll them up so I can keep a little quantity in a handy little spot, handy little plastic tub, and then I put a pin through them just to hold them and not have them expand out. So these are the little pieces that I had left from when I cut the edges off these ones, so they'll be useful for something down the track. So anyway, let's get on to doing some wrapping of beads. Now I did pick up my round bead, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day or a fantastic evening. It's Melbourne, it's Melbourne, no, it's Monday here in Melbourne. Clearly a working day has just zapped my brain, but that's okay. This is the relaxing hour of the day when we get to play with thread. Had a beautiful ratatouille for dinner, homemade with homegrown zucchinis, eggplants and peppers, tomato. So I've just tied, and I've taken the thread through the bead, and then I've just tied a notch, a double notch. You can do a triple knot just to be sure. And then I'm going to hold the bead and start doing stitches up through. I'll actually end up wrapping it around my finger, which is not what I was intending to do. No, that's okay. So I'm just going to hold the bead between my fingers and just start, and hopefully you can see, start passing. And it's quite tricky because the bead is slipping all over the joint, but that's, oops, what have I done there? I've done something slightly loopy-goopy on the very first go. Let's just check what's going on there. Don't think it'll be a problem. Might be just where the knot is. Okay, so we're just going to hold it and just start doing loops, and you just want all those little loops to go next to each other, so you can just use your fingernail just to push them along. Who knows? Just checking them on camera. Obviously, the bigger the bead, the easier the task is, but that's okay. We like a challenge around here. Oops, jumping beads. Little life of its own. It's going, I'm not going to make it easy for you, Christine. You're going to have to work at this. Don't know if you can hear in the background the cicadas are singing out the window. Do you have cicadas where you are? They've definitely always been there, always been that feature of summer for me as a child. Used to listen out for when the cicadas started singing. And you'd find they'd come out of the ground and they'd leave their shells, their sort of shells that they were coming out of, hatching out of them, or is it just their sort of their hard skin that they then shed? I don't actually know, but they'd leave them stuck to trees and things, so you'd find all the cicada shells around. And I remember the little legs on the cicada shells, they were kind of sticky, so people would end up sticking them like to your clothing or your arm or something. But the cicadas themselves are these, yeah, they're beautiful creatures. I might even have to add one to my garden, who knows? Maybe that's the inspiration, add a cicada to the garden. But yeah, sort of jewel greeny colour. I haven't actually seen one I've heard them, but yeah, haven't seen one around. I had to laugh today though. I took Travis the dog out for a little break in the garden, and this massive, I think they're Christmas beetles, but a pretty big one, came zooming up the steps. So it was a flying beetle, and it was making quite a racket, like zzz, like quite loud. And poor Travis the dog got absolutely spooked by it, because the beetle flew up the stairs past me and then proceeded to do circuits around Travis the dog. And so he thought, what on earth is going on? I've not seen one of these things. I think he thought it was a spycraft. I suppose we shouldn't joke about these things. And so he just went bolting inside, and for the next little while refused to come outside, even when I went down to the veggie patch to get him some beans, which he adores, my homegrown beans. So that was the adventures for Travis today. So what I've done is I've just worked all the way around, just passing the needle through and up and through and up. So from the bottom up, and just creating lots of little threads all the way around, and just trying to sort of work around in sequence. So actually I might just do a few more, but the good thing is you want to leave just a few little gaps, I guess, because you want to sort of see the colour of the base bead coming through at some points, because that gives you the sense of the ribs of the pumpkin, which is what you want. So then I'm going to keep the pumpkin threaded on the bead. I'm then going to take my needle down at one of these points, and then I'm going to come up at the other end of the lace. Hopefully I'm still on camera. And I'm going to pop up, and then I'm going to take my thread and needle through the bead, and I'm going to then anchor it in place again at the end where we first anchored it down. And then I might just do another stitch just to be sure, because we don't want our pumpkins moving, jiggling around too much. And we definitely want our pumpkins to stay in place when this is all hung on the wall. It's definitely going to have to go all the way down the staircase, I think, by the size that it's rapidly growing. Although who knows, maybe with some of the future prompts they'll just be a single prompt. But I'm not too worried if it ends up being two sections. That will be fine with me as well. So I'm not going to at this stage go all the way to the edge, because my piece, the thickness of it is actually, even with the sort of, the fringing, we're probably going to only be up to there. So I'll either be trimming it down or folding it under. So I'm going to leave a margin along the side where I don't put stitches in. So that's the pumpkin done over there. So I'm just going to stitch, put a couple of stitches in and just tie them at the back. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. Oops. My chair's still squeaking, still haven't got the WD-40 or whatever it is that I need. Okay, so we can do the same on the other side with this more irregular shaped one, which will be even more of a degree of difficulty, I imagine. That seems to have a tiny little knot in the thread, but I don't, oh, there's another little knot there. I think we will abandon that piece of thread and we will do this one. So I keep a lot of my sort of random bits of thread around, because I like to draw down on the cut bits first before I sort of lash into the other ones, the newer sets. So I think it was Leanne saying she ties her knots just at the end of the thread, which is how I used to always do my knots. But then when I saw Sarah and Rachel doing them this way, I thought I'll give that a go. So what you do in this method is you put your thread against your little finger. Hopefully I've got this, I just need to move a bit close like that. Thread against your finger, you put your needle over the top of it, and then you do a few wraps around your needle, and then holding the thread and your needle, you slide your little knotty piece that becomes a knot when it gets to the very end of your thread, or in this case it's become 2 knots, but that's okay, we've got a knot up the top. Normally it just becomes 1 knot, but that was an extra special one. Extra special demonstration for you, Leanne. You're probably not at all convinced having watched that. And in fact, I just realised I didn't actually need to tie a knot in my thread there, because we're going to be just tying a little knot around where our bead is, because it's not like we're attaching it into the fabric yet. So let's just forget I even did that demonstration. I won't cut it out because I think it's important to have a bit of warts and all footage. I was just saying to Corinne in a comment on one of her videos, it's just great to see the whole process, warts and all, because things don't always go to planned in this stitching caper. Not at all. Okay, so we're just going to do the same process, and hopefully, I don't think I was on camera maybe when I started that, but hopefully I am now. So we're just taking our needle and embroidery thread, single strand of embroidery thread in orange. Can't tell you what colour because it was just a random thread. It does have a tiny little knot there as well. just like the other one, unless I did just pick up the one that I just, no, I'm sure I didn't do that. Sure, I couldn't be that silly. Guess it's the problem when sort of threads is hanging around a bit loose, they can get a little bit knotty. So with the irregular shape, you'll definitely find you get a bit more of the thread not sort of necessarily going where you want it to go, but that's okay. We just want to get enough of a density of threads that we get a decent coverage, but we actually want some of the bits of the underlying bead showing through, because that gives you that sense of the pumpkin. So I've seen a few more people sharing their videos of their down the garden path piece on here, but if I haven't come across yours and left a comment, I always leave comments. So if I haven't left you a comment and you've got a video, definitely drop me a comment in mine and I will check you out. So I do love to watch stitching videos when I am stitching. Do you do the same? Have a stitching video on or a craft video on while you're doing your work, or do you like to put other sorts of videos on? So I can feel that we're getting to the point where I probably can't get too many more stitches through this one. So I'm then going to do the same. Put I just don't want to sew my green thread, which we'll be using in a moment. I'm going to put a little stitch down through the fabric and then pop up at the other end of the little lacy bit, and then anchor that through the middle of my pumpkin. Oops. Let's go through, and then let's pop down and anchor it in place, and then let's go through one more time. We can get through without the needle getting stuck. Come on, needle, through you come. Just need you to pop out of there. Pop you out, needle. Really should get a pair of pliers, and I've also just put some hand cream on my hands, which is not helping things at all. I think we might just have to settle for a single stitch anchoring that one down, or can we get a better run through this time? Oops. No, I think that's going to be a single anchoring stitch, but I might just try and anchor it by its end threads as well, just to be sure, Anchor it down that way as well. There we go. It is anchored down, so I'll just, oops, it's unthreaded itself. I'm sure we can, what are we doing there? Okay, let's just quickly rethread. Just pop the end to make that rethreading a bit easier for myself. There we go, hopefully. Nope, not there we go, we just managed to thread the end. A little bit of saliva on the end of the thread always helps. Okay, so we just need to finish this one off at the back. Just put a few knots in just to hold it secure. And I'm stitching my own hair in, so there's some DNA for someone to work out down the track who created this piece of craziness. Okay, so that is done. They are our pumpkins. So yeah, I love with these ones, because they're more irregular, they get the actual little ridges where you can see the original bead through them, so that gives a great effect. So I reckon now we will proceed to do our, because I've got the thread here. I've just put it through the fabric. We will proceed to do, actually no, we have to first of all finish putting just our thread through the pumpkins for the vine. So what did I just do with that needle? Hopefully I'll be able to get that one through. So I've just got a thread, a sort of a khaki kind of coloured thread, khaki green, which I've passed through most of the pumpkins, but which I need to then pop up, and I might just take it through this one here. Hopefully again I can get the needle through. Hopefully there's still enough space in the middle. Maybe not. I might just have to put the vine through to where the pumpkin is, but not have it going all the way through the pumpkin itself, which will work fine anyway. And so I'm just going to do it a bit loose, not pull it all the way down to the fabric, because I want the vine sitting up above the fabric. So here I don't want to go super tight with tying my knot. Okay. Right. So there, hopefully you can see it sitting up from the fabric like these other ones along here. And at this end I just also did a little loopy thing, like the sort of loopy viney bits on it. So next up, I'm going to use this needle, which I got out before. And so the thread I'm using, and I think this is a perle, but it's got a particular, I guess, pattern on it that when I saw it, I was going through a bag of of threads, mixed threads that I got from Melanie from Purveyor of Reclaimed Fabrics. I'll put the link to her down below because my brain is seemingly like a sieve today. It's not like I don't look at Melanie's Instagram often enough. So she is another great retailer of vintage goodies, clearing out her stash. And so I got a huge variety of threads, and I got this one. And when I was looking at it, I thought it will make just the perfect little cabbages, because the way the fabric lays down when you create a French knot is that you get almost those little spirals that you get in cabbages. So super excited to discover that what I had as my vision in my mind when I saw the thread actually carried through onto the fabric. So I thought we could do some of those together, because I'm doing 4 wraps of the needle to create my French knots. I was just trying to see where I was up to in the cabbage. I might just cross over anyway to the back here. So I'm using a larger needle because I needed a bigger head that I could pass this thread through and not make it all go squishy and difficult. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 wraps to create our French knots, and then I'm stabbing it down into the table, holding onto the tail or that bit of thread, trying not to capture it around my pumpkins, and then pulling it through to get that nice spiral. And you can always use some final stitches at the end just to separate and get them sort of sitting exactly where you want to. With just a little embroidery floss, you could do that. So then I'm going to put another one here, actually probably a smidge over, I think. There we go. Now I'm still on camera. So we're popping up, we're then wrapping the needle 1, 2, 3, 4, poking the needle back down into the same hole, keeping the tension on the thread while we then just pull it through and create our beautiful little spirally knotty thing. Pop up and do it again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Poke it back down. It's good to have a desk or a work surface. I just have a quilt over here, and usually I have my sewing pads, my repurposed drying pads. underneath, but today I've just got the surface because I've got so much on my table and haven't actually put my little sewing mat back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're going to fit 2 more in. So I probably just need to go a tiny bit back. I wish my veggie patch was as neat as this. I tend to go for the much more organic look, one might say. Mum always says I seriously overplant all my vegetables together, which is probably what this what the broccoli cauliflower patch. I've just made a bit of a mess of that one, so I'm just going to go back because it just, oops, and we've just almost put a knot in, but save the day. We shall save the day. There we go. So yeah, I way overplant my veggie patch, but it all seems to work okay in the end. Mum gave me some beautiful poppies, and they're just all different colours of poppies, and they've just kept going. She was amazed when she came round last time because all hers had sort of done their dash, but mine are interspersed amongst my tomato plants, and yeah, it's a lovely display. And then the borage is self-seeded, and the bees love the borage, so borage has beautiful little blue star flowers, and the bees love it. Oops, I'm just going to redo that knot as well because it got a little bit out. You want to sort of try and keep the knot sort of layered the way it is if you want to have it come really, really neat. So yeah, the borage is blue star flowers, little ones, and you can actually eat them. So and they've got a slightly sort of cucumber flavour. Now the other trick with the wrapping is you don't want to go too tight because you'll have a little struggle like I am here. In fact, I'm just going to pull the needle back through because I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Maybe I'm talking too much and I just need to concentrate. And I'm also now down to my last little bit of thread, so that always adds the complexity. Okay, let's concentrate. Let's not make it too tight. And let's try not to create a knot either that we seem to be. And let's just get it done. Get it done, get it done. There we go. So yes, borage, you can put it in drinks, in ice blocks, as a garnish on salad or cakes, and it's got a nice little cucumbery kick to it. Well, I suppose cucumber doesn't really have a kick, a nice cucumbery taste. Okay, so that is our cabbagey bits done, and then I'm using, now this wasn't labelled, but I'm pretty sure it's Appleton wool, and I've actually bought another little stash from Melanie of Appleton wools in some good sort of flower colours. I really shouldn't keep looking at her site because I just keep finding stuff I want to buy, but she lives not that far away actually, in an area that I'm often passing through, so it's perfect. I can just stop by and pick it up. And again, it's not that she'd be sending her things to landfill, but it's, yeah, repurposing unwanted materials, which is right up my alley. So again, could have shown you that knotting process again, but I didn't actually talk through the process as I was doing it. So with this one, I think I started out doing 8 wraps, but those are probably a smidge big in the first 2 rows. So then I went back to doing 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then popping down through the fabric, giving it a wiggle. There we go. The wool, I think, is a little bit more sort of fibrous, so it can catch a bit more on itself, but it is a lovely feel and a lovely look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I only need to do 1 more of my red cabbages. That's good. I think 2, 3, 4, 5, and putting it down. So I hope you all had a nice weekend as well. Ours was very, very quiet, so it was just lots of nice time for pottering around, and yeah, did a lot more playing with transferring of images from inkjet fabric, and I'm still playing with that, as I think I mentioned. So yeah, as I said before, I can come back and just, if I need to get any of these to sit a bit more neatly, but I'm actually pretty happy with that, because in the patch they wouldn't be sitting absolutely all at totally even distances apart. So I reckon that's a good look for the patch. So let's now move on to our strawberries. Now we're beading, and so we need a really thin needle. So this is a very thin, flexible one. And so let's try the tying of the knot again. So I'm going to put the thread across my pointing finger. Is that index? Yeah, index finger, I think. I'm going to put then the needle on top of it. Let me bring it down. So thread, needle, and then I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. Doesn't really matter how many you do. And then I'm going to hold that little wrappy bit and knot, which will then form the knot down the bottom of the thread, like that. So I tend to do most of my knots that way now that I've kind of taught myself that, having watched the girls do it that way. I'd never even thought to do knots that way before. Always do it like you do, Leanne, the way that, yeah, like you, my mum, showed me that way, which is probably the same way my nana as well, who was a seamstress, did it, I imagine. So just popping up, and then I've just got some of my red beans just in a tin here, because I find that the easiest way that I can then just have a look and pick them up. And then I'm just going to go across to the other side. So for this patch, I wanted to evoke, oops, a little bit of random threads got caught up. I wanted to evoke a strawberry patch with hay and then a central sort of aisle of strawberries. So I was looking through my ribbon collection and came across this one, which I think might have even come on an order from Lucello in Melbourne. I'm not sure where I got it from, but I've only got a relatively small length of it. I think this is the section I've got of it. And I thought, oh, that's perfect, because it's got that sort of hay colour and then the green stripes. And so I cut 3 pieces of it in line with the bed, and then I actually just used a bit of Yoo-hoo glue just to stick down the bottom one and the top one, and then position the sort of middle one to get those stripy bits of hay and aisles, and then I just put some stitches around with a hay coloured single strand of embroidery floss to hold it down, because the Yoo-hoo's not really there to hold it long term, it's just to keep it in position while you stitch it down. And then obviously the stitches I'm doing now are going to hold it down even further with the beads on top. Now I could do the double stitches for the beads, but I'm happy for now just to do the single, and if I'm at all worried about them I can go back and do the doubles later. But they're sitting well. So these are the jumbo strawberries that you see in some of the French markets, because obviously the size of them, they're a very decent sized strawberry compared to those, the pumpkins, although the pumpkins could be the smaller, more petite ones. I'm not too worried about proportion, but I do in this garden want to sort of work backwards in the sizing, so as we go back in the garden things will be getting proportionally smaller, because I have got the good proportional image to work with. So glad I wasn't having to kind of try and work out all these angles and proportions myself. That would have been a bit tricky. But it's been kind of nice to, yeah, have a base of a more sort of architectural piece to stitch on. My other ones have been a lot more free form. But then to be able to think what I want to put in the beds and how I want to evoke the different fruits and vegetables. I was thinking today, how could I create some, I think they're called French market carrots, which are those more sort of roundy carrots. And then there's the radish as well. Is it the French breakfast radish, I think it might be called. So I was thinking they could be fun to create, possibly with some beads. So we've got all our beads done there. So that's our strawberry. And what I might end up doing there is just putting some little stitches around just to evoke the leaves of the strawberry, but I'm not sure if I need that given I've got the green underneath them. But there's always that option there if I'm at a lost cause about what to do. I'm sure I won't choose to stab my finger with a needle as I did there. Then I can come back and play with it. That's the great thing about these pieces, you can just keep playing. And apologies again about the squeaky chair. So that is the piece, which I'm really happy with how it's coming along in this lower section, and pleased that I've got plenty that I can keep playing with for the rest of this week, but also probably I've got a bit of scope to keep doing things. So some of my ideas so far are maybe to do, there's some little trees, but I might even add some more trees in, and to do some lemon trees and maybe some orange trees and maybe some, what else have I got? I've got other red beads, so maybe some apple trees, and I could even do a green apple tree possibly. Although actually I reckon the green apples would they look more like that? Probably. So again, these are vintage beads that I got from, I got this from a bulk purchase from Facebook Marketplace, so it was a great way to add to my bead collection. And from that same purchase I've just got a huge number. This is just a tiny amount that I got out that I thought I could have a play with. I was thinking the garden beds could probably have some little flowers in them potentially, and then I can use some of the green beads to capture like cabbages further back in the design, sort of working back to smaller and even smaller. I've got some white beads that could be different types of flowers, or they could even become the little radishes, or I was thinking for the radishes, but I don't know if that will be the wrong size, these little pearly seedy beans, if I maybe, because the radishes are like a striped white and red, so I was thinking I could even just colour the beads half and half like that. And then I've got a range of mixed beads that I can always braid, and other mixed beads. So yeah, plenty of beads to select from. And then I've also got lots more ribbons. Another great purchase I got was a massive, like huge box, a huge tub, just filled with ribbons on rolls, brand new. It must have been someone that was running a business with them, and all different ones, including these really lovely fabric-y sort of ribbons. So I was thinking I could even use some sections of this in the garden beds. And I've got other fabric-y ribbons from that, which I'm wondering, probably not on this piece, but yeah, I think I could use this sort of ribbon for silk embroidery. I don't think it's silk. I think it's a man-made fabric, but I think I could definitely use that, as well as reds, some tulipy, which I think will be for another project. Beautiful sort of shot colour. Originally I was thinking I might even use this for my cabbage because it had that sort of purpley tone to it, but I think it will be for something else. But I'd love to have a play around with that, as well as then other sorts of ribbons, meshy types. I'd started to have a play with that as well. So lots of options for kind of adding dimensions to the garden beds, but I hope that's given you a bit of inspiration. So far we've got pumpkins, cauliflower, broccoli, Romanesco, red cabbage, green cabbage, and strawberries. So leave in the comments what else you would like to see me add to a garden bed, because I've got lots of garden bed that I can do. So it could be a tree, or it could be a vegetable, could be a fruit. I guess most of my vegetables are the sort of autumny vegetables, I think. I'm trying to remember exactly when. Strawberries season, mine tend to kind of go most of the year. They go totally dormant, I think, at one stage, but yeah, they're certainly going now, and I think they go well into autumn. So probably an autumny sort of garden, but I don't have to be too strict. We could even be changing the seasons as we travel up through the garden. So thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Hope you're getting some lovely creative time yourselves and getting lots of inspiration. Look forward to seeing what you're doing. Leave a comment if you've got a video or something you'd like to watch, even if it's not Roxy Journal of Stitchery. If it's some sort of stitchery project, leave me a comment and I would love to check out your video. Take care everyone, and see you soon.